there, I'm going to do a painting today, but before I start on that, I'm going to start, every once in a while, I'm going to start adding in just some little tips on things that I do that make my life easier, and just maybe it'll help you too. I've got this painting that I did the other day that was done with the color shift paint, and so I just want you to see the shimmer of that's got metallic gold, and then this color here is the purple flash, which looks blue from one angle and kind of purple from another angle. This color here is just straight out acrylic paint. It's not got any metallic in it. So I did this last week, and I need to seal it. And if I am not using the Deco Art varnish, my go-to is Liquitex High Gloss Varnish. I love it. I'll zoom in a little bit here. And then my second go-to is Minwax Polyacrylic in the Gloss Varnish. And I also put it in a bottle this size. It's in a quart can, and I put it in a bottle, which this is a quart. But you can pour it out of this, and it's so much easier to put onto your canvas. This did not have any silicone in it, and I didn't have to add any silicone to get the cells, so I don't have to clean it off. So that's a wonderful thing. So what I do is I make me a bag, and I put Liquitex, and I put today's date, and I have a nice sponge brush, and I make sure there's no animal fur or dust or anything on this brush that I've had sitting in my box for a while. So it's all nice and clean. And the first coat is always going to be kind of the roughest, and then after that it's like easy breezy. And what I do is my first coat will go one way, the second coat will come this way, the third coat will go that way. So I switch up directions each time. But when I'm just first laying it down, I'll kind of go in all directions, and the first coat especially, I'll kind of scrub it in with my brush, but then I'll finish out with one direction. So, and then each layer after that, because you have a coat on there, it'll go on much easier, and you can put it on kind of heavy, and it's always good to go fast, because if you go too slow and you stroke back over it, it will lift it off, and you don't want to do that. So this is the way I do mine. And I do use a sponge brush. And it's Liquitex and Minwax are both very watery, very fluid, which I do like. And what I do is I just kind of go in all directions at first. And I look at my reflection from the light source to make sure I don't miss any area of the canvas. On this first round, make sure you get your corners and edges. So it's just very quick. It can be crisscross, whatever, but then I go back over it very lightly in one direction. This canvas is 24 inches long and 12 inches wide. So that first coat is going to show a little bit of brush strokes or whatever with that first coat, but each layer after that will go on very well. And if you put it on kind of heavy and you do it fast, it will kind of just level out, and it does really well. I'm just making sure I have my edges coated too. So there's that one. Here's the second one I did after that one, and I did not add silicone to this one. I did have a little bit of magenta that just barely came into the whole color equation. It might have had a touch of silicone, but I still don't have any. I don't have any silicone residue or anything, so I'm not going to clean it. Some people use really fine bristled brushes, but the sponge brushes to me are just so much easier. And you can store them in your bag up for a week or two at least. I don't rinse them in between. And when you're finished with it, you just throw it away. So I went all over the canvas, and then I'm just very lightly going one direction. And that's that. Then I go around all the edges. Scrubbing it in, because you know sometimes that canvas is kind of really porous at first, and it likes to soak up that varnish. So this is a new sponge brush that I started with today, so it doesn't have a lot of extra varnish in it, but as you store it in your bag and you do not rinse it, whoops, that wasn't smart. Go back over it. Go back in the direction that I swiped it in. So now I have a coat of varnish on my bag. But every time you use this, it'll accumulate varnish in the brush, which just makes it really kind of flow even better each time you do it after that. So I'm going to move these out of the way. And sometimes for lighter canvases that don't have a black background, I love to do my black ones in a really high sheen, so I'll do 3 to 5 coats. Sometimes just one coat is all you need for lighter or things that don't have a really dark background to it. But because I used color shift and metallics on that one, I am going to do multiple coats, which will really just help that metallic and color shift really kind of pop. This is the 24 by 30 that I'm getting ready to paint on. I put push pins in the corners, and it's got the crossbar for support, but I don't know if you can tell, this canvas is really, really loose. And also I want to show you the difference in better quality canvas versus just the cheaper ones. Like this corner here, these, it's stapled on the back. All of them are. There's no staples on the sides. But see, this on a really nice canvas, they either tuck under into another piece of wood here and you don't see any staples, or they're much neater on the corners. Like this is just literally folded over and it's loose. But this canvas, you can see my hands holding the canvas here. If I turn it over, I can get my whole hand underneath that bar in the middle, and that's not supposed to be the way it is. I switched water bottles. The other one was not spraying. You thoroughly coat the back of your canvas with water. So this is the fabric side that is unprimed. It's the linen or cotton or whatever duck canvas that it is. So it's basically unsealed fabric. The other side has gesso that is factory, done before it's shipped to the stores, and so that's called pre-primed. But so what I do is I go in and I spray and saturate this canvas on the back. And I'll rub it in with my hands. Already it's tightened up. You can even see kind of on the corners here where it's buckling a little bit. Like the canvas is not totally flat, so when it's fully dry and stretched, you should not have any buckles on your corners like that. You can see the dent. There's a dent here. So just make sure you wet it good. And I was going to use this canvas, but because it was so unstretched and not very tight, I'm not going to use it until it's thoroughly dry. But that's what you do to tighten up your canvases, they should be like tight as a drum here. So this one is a 24 by 36. This one is, it's tight, and here's the difference in this one versus the last one, is how I talked about the wood. It has a strip of wood, so the canvas is tucked in around the edges, and so you don't see any staples except for on the very corners. And then this is a different kind of fabric here. It's not as linen-y as the other one. It's it may even have a coat of something on it, but this is a different type of fabric. So I'm going to add my push pins on the corners. And if you wonder why we use push pins in the acrylic pouring world, it is to keep it off the table or surface so that you can get your fingers under it and not have your canvas sitting in paint that's laying on the surface of whatever you're working on, like sitting in a pool of paint and getting, you know, stuck to it or making a really big mess underneath. So this way, with the push pins, you can still get your fingers under the canvas to lift it and tilt it and that kind of thing. And I'll usually write somewhere on the back of my canvas so that instead of trying to eyeball it or having to measure it every time, you can just look where you've written it. This one I may use my Floetrol, which is in the Amazon recommendation link below all my videos. So this thing has been used. This is an acrylic surface. This is not metal. I had a metal one that was bigger than this, and I ended up cutting my hand or finger along the edge because it was so sharp. So this is a thick acrylic plastic blade. I also use my cheap paint scrapers. This is a Wilton icing tool that I have a couple of that came as a set, and I think they're in my link, the Amazon link. I use an old store card for smaller areas that I want to swipe. Use a butter knife instead of a palette knife. I have combs and different things that I use for different textures. I'm trying to decide today what colors I want to use. My squeeze bottles do have silicone in them. I'm going to mix up, this is a neon orange. I want it to be really vivid. I'm thinking about putting, these are fluorescent colors, but I don't want them real fluid. I want some body to them, so I'm looking around for a different paint here. So I don't see anything. I don't see any more neon yellow oranges that I have. I have a glow in the dark, but I don't want to use glow in the dark. I'm trying to get the last little bit out of this bottle. I'm going to add, this is Primary Yellow by Dollar Rowney. I forget where I got this paint from. So I want to brighten this orange up, make it really bold, so that's better. Add a little bit more. You can always make your own colors if you don't have the colors you want. So this is a much more yellow orange, which I like better, because I have my deeper orange that's the standard orange, and then this is going to be, I'll get my shirt in it too. And I'm going to move my canvas while I do all this, because I don't want to get stuff all over it. My other squeeze bottle paints have Floetrol in them. 1:1. When I'm doing squeeze bottles, I like my paint to be no more than 1:1 ratio. If nothing else, even more paint than Floetrol, because you actually like a thicker paint coming out of your squeeze bottles. It gives it more body to stand up and not flow out and flatten on your canvas. This is fluorescent orange. And now that I've added my acrylic paint, I'm going back in with this fluid paint and I'm going to adjust it. So I've got a nice bright orange. And I technically don't have, I think I have a squeeze bottle or two, but I'm not going to put just this little bit of paint in a squeeze bottle. So what I'll do is I'll make it into a little point with my paper cup here. This is a 3-ounce paper cup, bathroom cup, and that way I can do it without having to use a squeeze bottle. This is also a cup that I stood in some paint and it's got dried paint around the edges, so I'm going to get some of that off because I don't want it by any chance getting into my paint. This was neon orange too, that is handmade modern. I got it at Target. I do not recommend it for fluid painting. To me, the quality of it is not good enough and it is a little bit transparent. So I used it because it was the only neon orange I had, but then I added so much more paint to it to make it stronger. I'm going to keep that neat. I'm going to keep this out in case I just want to squirt it straight out of the bottle. So today I'm going to use that orange, my neon orange, and I'm not putting any silicone in this because I don't really want a lot of cells. I'm going to have cells because of the paint squeeze bottles having silicone in them already, but I'm not really going for cells. So this is Dioxazine Purple, which is the dark, deep purple that I love. There's the Floetrol. Always make sure it's latex based. I'm going to use red, and this is my deep magenta color. And just to make sure, I'm going to squeeze a little of this Artist Loft deep magenta into my squeeze bottle, straight in, because if anything I want it to be a little thicker than it already is. On the swipe paintings, like I said, my preference is that the paint comes out a little bit thicker than what I would do for acrylic pouring. You want a little bit more body in the swiping paints. And what causes the cells is the silicone, which is like treadmill lubricant, like this is Spot On treadmill lubricant. That's what's in the squeeze bottles. Or if I did a pour and I had some paint left in a cup and I put it into my bottle, it might have had some coconut milk in it. Same difference, really. I'm going to use black, the yellow. I'm going to use my metallic gold, and if that metallic, I like the metallic gold to really kind of stand up off the canvas. If that's not thick enough, I'll even maybe squeeze it straight out of the bottle to get it to be a little thicker. Sometimes it's hard to remember what's in my bottles. If I can't remember, I squeeze it out on my hand. So that's brown, and then this one is bronze. I want the bronze. I may or may not use copper, but I'm going to put that out just in case. And if I hadn't used these in a while, I make sure the openings are good at the end of the bottle. I've got my white paint, which will go over my canvas in a very thin coat. I don't think I'm going to use this, but I'm pulling out the Alizarin Crimson. A lot of these are deco art colors. I have a bottle of Color Shift Purple Flash, and I do love it. I may dribble a little bit in. If I do, I've actually got some little paper cups that are really tiny. If I do decide to use it, I'll put it in a little paper cup so that I can squeeze it to a point and have control over it that way. So just in case I decide to use that, I think those are the colors I'm going to use. So I'm going to put my gloves on. I don't like these gloves. They're too big for my hands. I have big hands and these are bigger than my hands. But they're what I have right now. I hate to buy something and not use it. So I'm not really going for cells, but there will be cells because the silicone is in the bottles. And there's nothing I can do about that without emptying all my paint out and not using silicone, and I'm not going to do that because then I'd be wasting my paint. So I just want to skim this out very quickly just to have a light layer of white paint. And then what it does too is it helps your paint, and I put too much paint on here, I don't even need this much, but it helps your paint that you're squeezing out. It just helps it move around on the canvas a little bit easier, but I could basically start this painting with a dry canvas if I wanted to. It just doesn't slide around quite as easily. But I have done it on dry canvases before, so it is possible to do it that way. And I should have done that with this. The only thing is when you put a white or a black layer on the bottom or whatever, if you coat your canvas first, when you are swiping, you have to keep in mind that you have to do it very, very gently. And when I say gently, I mean like you're skimming the surface where you're parallel with the canvas. I'm going to go around and make sure my edges are covered with the white. And if I have any color that goes over the edge, then my sides are painted white, just like the top of the canvas. That way it'll all flow together and make sense. So now I'm just going to try to level this out just a little bit more. And because I'm working on a kitchen table that is round and I have other things back here, the camera and things like that, I have a limited amount of space that I can put the canvas on. So sometimes I have to turn my canvas and do things like that because of the size of the space of the table. And one of these days when I have a studio and a nice big area to work on, that'll be different, I hope, and I can actually, you know, do it in the direction I want to without having to move things. And this is not like super, it's not super thick, so it should level out pretty well as it sits here. And it may even start to dry as I paint, because that's what generally happens is I do a thin coat and then it starts to dry as I'm doing my swiping. So when I decide to paint is when my husband decides to go mow the grass. So I apologize for any background noise. I'm probably not going to talk while I film the rest of it. And if that's the case, then I can also quieten the video and you won't hear the lawnmower in the background. I have kind of an inspiration photo I'm working with. So that's kind of what has given me this idea to do this. And this may be one of my more abstract pieces. I'm not doing the typical swiping like I normally do. And when you swipe, you need to wipe off your tool. So I didn't like what it had done right there, so I swiped it off and just putting white back on, and hopefully that'll level out. I am going to put a little bit of the color shift paint straight out of the bottle. Switch to this one for this. So I don't like that separation of color here, but go back here. I'll put a little purple rain here. Instead of pulling out the color shift paint, I'll just do that. And put some of that bright orange again. Magenta. So I'm going to redo this area right here. So now I want this area here to look kind of like it's a flame. So I'll put a little of this fluid Hansa yellow just for the heck of it. Alizarin Crimson there too. But I want to make sure this is very red feeling and fiery. So I think I'm going to turn the canvas so I can swipe it more easily in this direction. So I think what I'm going to do down here is tie in that purple again, coming down this direction. So magenta. Some of this bright orange. Red. But I want it to feel very purple. So I've got to tie in all this together somehow too, so I'm just adding colors until I figure out how I'm going to make that work. And I'll probably do it with a smaller tool. But I love the cell action going on. It is beautiful. I don't like this. I'll probably just take that area off. A little bit of white back onto it and just skim it a little bit. If you have anything that's dried on your thing you're kind of squeegeeing with, it'll leave grooves, and that's what's happening. So I'll just put more paint. And keep trying one of my scrapers that will leave a flatter. That's working a lot better. I just didn't have enough paint down. Okay. So I don't want to mess up what I've already done. So I'm very lightly skimming the top. I'm trying not to disrupt what's underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this area here. Make sure my tool is totally clean and nothing's in the way. when I make my swipe that goes off the canvas. And the reason for the holes is I probably just didn't put enough paint on the canvas in order for it to drag all the way across, and that's okay. I'm just explaining to you why there's some gaps. So I'm just basically taking my finger, I had a little bit of purple from the edge, and I'm just dabbing. I'm not going to do anything in that area though. Little splashes that I don't like, and I'm just getting rid of those. But now, because it is kind of abstract but it's really bold, I want to add a little bit more boldness to it. I am going to take the black and I'm going to zig up and off the canvas. And I'm going to get the paint off the floor. Like, this is kind of neat here. I don't want that there, but I'm trying to see if I can get that to blend in a little bit better. And if I add something here, and of course this is going to drip out, and I don't want dots. But if I run my butter knife through it, that kind of takes care of that problem. So I'm going to use the bronze here. Basically, I'm just filling in the gap right there. And I'm going to take this bronze and bring it up into my paint. Basically, I'm thickening that line up. Add some gold on top of that. And just kind of let it bleed into it a little bit. Hopefully it'll bleed into it. And I'm going to take this over here. And this is where I'm going to take my, it's like a, kind of like what a trowel has, like when you're doing grout work. So it just makes the grooves there. I'm going to do it here. Shall I dare do it? I am. Just a bit. And I think right here, thickening up that gold. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing. Just at the bottom. kind of has a feathery feel. I don't know. It depends on how you scrape it as to how it's going to look. And I'm not going to add copper. I had pulled copper out, but I'm not going to use it. I'm going to take this gold right along the edge here. And bronze. So this one, I want to be able to control more, and I'm not going to use the, I'm going to use a comb. I like the gold on top better than the bronze on top, so I'm going to just go back over the edge. Take the black over this way. Add a bit more gold. And I have a piece of hair in my paint too. Make sure and touch up that white there. Make sure my fingers are clean. So this is definitely more abstract, but I like it. I'm trying to figure if I want to do anything in this area, but I don't know. Isn't that interesting on the trowel? It's pretty hot webbed. Kind of wish this was more like that. So what I'm going to do, add my black back. The bronze is there pretty strong. Do the gold again. With it, see, with it being a straight, heavy tool, so I'm just closing up the gaps where it kind of scraped into the other paint. It doesn't look like that, but it's closer than the combed effect. So the only thing is, do I leave the white here? I think I will. And I think I'm going to just take this gold. Swish it through. So to get a sharper point, if you want to with your, and you can't do it with your bottle, you just take something that's flat and straight and you just pull it through and it'll make that sharp point. This end here, since it's kind of iffy, then I'm going to come back and swipe it that way. So I have a really beautiful spot of paint on the table. Let's see if I can save it. I like to keep photo paper around. It sticks to photo paper like glue, and I just dropped it in the middle of my paint. So anyway, those are pretty colors. It looks very fiery and pretty. And I'm going to clean off this little area of the magenta. I'm not sure what I quite did in this area, but it almost looks like I put my hand in it or something. So I'm just going to go back in and fill in with some white. Sure I have a flow that I like everywhere. So it's kind of wild and colorful and a little bit on the abstract side, which I like. I've been wanting to do one of these lately. Like I said, I didn't necessarily want the cells, but the silicone is in the bottles, so that's what it's going to be, because there is silicone in the bottles. Even though, you know, a few of the paints that I used did not have silicone, it still makes cells because of the other paint around it. But there's some beautiful things going on. This may even sell up more. I could put my heat gun on it even. See though. This is kind of getting muddy looking. Just trying to figure out what to do with this area before I go any further. I don't think I can blow on it with the straw. See if I can do some white, just thicker white. So I kind of got back into the yellow that was thick enough to where it would go back. This I can't because this is not wet enough, but it might do a little feathering or selling on its own, so I'm just going to leave it as is. So like some of it comes over the edge of the canvas and some doesn't, and I just want to make sure it has some bit of semblance of a flow. Still does not, because I scraped away, it's not doing right. So I'm going to see if I can add a little back into it. Get my canvas back on the table, because it's not on the table right now. That way it's level, paint won't flow off. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed it. I like to do all kinds of things. I like to do the abstract, I like to do real, I like to do acrylic pours, I like to do swiping. So I'm not going to always just bring one bit of artwork to the table. It's always going to be something a little different every time, I hope. So thank you for watching. Forgot to heat it. The cool thing too, I wanted to make a point about these kind of paintings where you swipe, is it's a very thin layer of paint. The thickest part is where the lines have been added together multiple times. These kind of paintings dry pretty quickly, like definitely in 24 hours they're done. So the great part about this is if after it dries I decide it's missing something, I can still put a little, you know, jagged color of something to make it just as abstract looking as it is now. So that's the great part about this being a swipe of a sort, is that it dries very quickly within 24 hours. I'm back. This is the last part of the video. I had to go to a different city to pick up a painting of mine that I'm going to show you, that I've already painted on a previous video to show you the finished look. And then I went to Jerry's Artarama, which is in Raleigh, and they also have a couple of other locations in an online store. And I bought just a few things to play. I bought canvases too, but you know, this was something that I found that I've not seen before. And it's called a Liquid Art Panel by Davinci. There's the label on it in the corner. This is an 18 by 18 and it's 1.5 inches deep. So it would be like a gallery wrapped canvas depth. Used with fluid acrylics, high flow acrylics, pouring mediums, encaustics, resin pours, alcohol inks, dyes, and more. So it's gessoed already, and on the back side it's wood. So it's a panel on the top. I haven't opened the plastic up yet, but what you do is you pour and you, I guess, tilt it and everything, and then once you've done your painting inside and it's dried, then I guess you just paint your wooden frame whatever color you want it to go with your painting. So you basically have a painting with a frame that's built in already, that's raised up a little bit to look like a frame. And so this was probably $20 to $25 for an 18 by 18, but it's all pre-finished pretty much. You just do your acrylic pouring, you let it dry, you seal it, you paint your wood. I guess you could tape it off if you wanted to leave it natural, but you know, I would say most of my paintings I would want black or something like that on the frames, or white or something. But anyway, I thought that was really neat to find this, and pre-made. They are more expensive, but then it's like you have it framed already. So that was what I wanted to tell you about, that I thought was really neat. I also found these, which are 5 by 7 flat panels. There's 3 in a pack. AquaBoard. It's a clay board, so it's made to paint on, and the back is like some kind of a particle or heavy-duty board, and it's got a white gessoed finish on the top. And this wasn't too expensive. I think it was about $10 for 3 of them in a pack. And like, this is 5 by 7, so I thought, well, I can do a pour, and this will give me an opportunity to do some other artwork on top of the pour, like, you know, a bird or a frog or, you know, whatever you want, a butterfly, whatever you wanted to paint on it. So I bought these to try out for doing my regular art, like, you know, if I wanted to do a little small dog face or whatever, but I could also do a pour on the background if I wanted to. But they're nice and firm and solid. It's not like a canvas panel. So that's what I liked about these. They're archival. It's ampersand is the company, and it's AquaBoard, and so I'm gonna try these out. So here is one of the paintings that I've already done. This was my painting that I did, one of my last big black swipes that I did that I haven't done in quite a while, and I put it inside of a frame, and this frame is what I'm going to show you how I bought it. Let me zoom out here, because I'm going to show you how I'm going to put the other one in. So here's my Wings of Love, and you know, it's finished. This is just varnish. It's not resin, but it just shows you how glossy your varnish can turn out. And this is a 24 by 36 canvas, and it's just a regular depth canvas. So it's not the deep one, it's just the regular canvas depth. And this is a frame just like the other one. And I wanted to show you, this is a 24 by 36 canvas, and it's gallery frame. So what happens is it looks like a deep frame on the sides, but you basically undo the clips, and I just put that in paint. I apparently have some wet white paint on the table. So you undo the clips. I'm going to try to do this quickly for you. You take out this back board. This frame at Jerry's Artarama was $60. And that's really actually a pretty good price for a ready-made frame. So you just take out the paper, and it has a heavy-duty piece of plastic, which I don't need. So what you do is you take your canvas and you just drop it right in. And you take your board and you put it back in, and you just push the clips in. I'm kind of spastic with these clips a little bit. So then you turn it over, and your canvas looks like it's there's the wet paint. I had wet paint on the table, white paint, so it's like, where on earth does it come from? But anyway, so there it is, and it looks like a deep canvas frame from the sides and the back and everything, but it's all ready to go. So now I have these two paintings are going to an exhibition in Winston-Salem in another town, and I've got to deliver them Tuesday, so I'll be taking these. The next thing I wanted to show you is at the beginning of the video, which was, you know, 6 or 7 hours ago. This is that 24 by 30 canvas that I had sprayed with water. And so now you see it's pretty nice and tight. There's still a little buckle right there, so I'll probably spray it one more time, but already it made it a lot tighter. It was so loose at the beginning, and now it's a lot firmer. So that's what you do to get your canvases nice and tight, is you just spray the back. I'm doing it again. This one was so loose originally, and then I'll put it aside to dry. So these were the two paintings that I had earlier that I put the first coat of varnish on, and I do want more because it is the metallic and color shift paints, and those always lend themselves to be a lot prettier when you have a higher gloss on them. So I'm taking out my used sponge brush that I had used earlier. This has the varnish on it still. So this is the second coat, and the first coat I did across. So this one I'm going to go this way. I'll probably do at least 3 coats. But to begin with, I just kind of scooted around, almost kind of scrub it on. You can scrub it on however you want to get it around as quickly as you can and as evenly as you can. So you just make sure you've got your canvas covered, and then you take it and you just go one way very softly. And I put a good amount of varnish on, so it levels, it kind of self-levels itself. And then you just check in your reflection to make sure you have all the surface covered, and then you do your sides. So already it looks better with that second coat. So it's wet and it will dry, you know, maybe just a little less shiny than it is right now, but overall it will be about that shiny. This was the second one I did, and I can tell that I had gone this way, so now I'm going to go across this way. This canvas was had a little more texture to it than the other one. It just depends on the quality of the canvas. I think I got this one at Walmart, believe it or not. So I'm just kind of covering everywhere as quickly as I can, and then back and forth. So this coat is heavier than the first coat, and it just makes it so much more glossy. So you always check your sides, and you always make sure that you don't have any drips that are coming down from your top. And so that's my second coat. Close my bag up with my brush in it. And I'll put this one aside to dry, and there's the second coat on that one. Here is this one that I had painted earlier on the video, and it's about 6 hours later, and it is dry to the touch except for right in that area. That's the beauty of the swiping, is your paint is thin enough to where it dries pretty quickly. But I wanted to add a little bit more to this. So, like right here, I didn't put gold, I just put the bronze, so I wanted to go back and add the gold. And with it being on top this time, it will not level out so much. But I want the gold on fairly thick, where it almost kind of stands up off the canvas a little bit, and is a little bit more 3D feeling. Because I want that gold to kind of sit on top. So I kind of want to add just a strand of red somewhere. So just kind of casual. And if my purple were in a better bottle, I would probably add purple, but the thing is too broad. Decide if I wanted to add anything else color-wise. But I think I just like the red, and I just wanted to add that gold more three-dimensionally. But I think I'm going to leave it the way it is otherwise. But I just wanted to show you how in a matter of 6 hours this is virtually dry, except for the central part where the paint is swiped from, and it's a little bit wet right here. So there is this. So it's abstract looking, and that may not appeal to some people, but I do love the colorful boldness of it, so I'm pretty pleased with it. And my white leveled out as it dried. I can see a hint of orange coming through, but I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm just going to leave it as is, because when you do a painting like this, it's not about perfection. It's kind of, to me, it's about just going with the flow and making it fluid and lively and colorful and joyful, that kind of thing. So I'm pleased with the way it turned out. I will not add another round of the varnish, but I'll probably do one more round of varnish in the morning on the 2 canvases. So it'll have 3 coats and it'll be nice and glossy, and I just wanted you to see that process. So I'll go back in the original direction that I went, which was, across. I start across, and then I let it dry, and I go down, and then I go across, and I go down, and I go across. If I got 5 coats, but if I do 3, then I go across, and then down, and then across, and allowing it to dry multiple hours in between each coat, and then each coat progressively I add a little bit more varnish to make it a little thicker and let it self-level, and then it's nice and super glossy and you don't see brush strokes. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.